All right. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm excited to do this because, I love Inventory Lab. I've used most of the other software solutions out there. So I've used Seller Engine. I've used Scan Power. We moved to Inventory Lab, and I kind of feel bad because I never gave really anybody else a shot after that because Inventory Lab, not only was it great for me, it was great for my family that sells. So my stepmom, my aunts, my uncle, they all used Inventory Lab. I hope that they don't bother Kim too much and the customer champions too much.
Never.
But Inventory Lab really saved us a lot of time and allowed us to have a lot of scalability. And as I was prepping for this, I was like, oh, I haven't been in this a lot because I haven't packed my own boxes for a while, which sounds kind of jaded and snobby. But I'm just busy doing other things. And so, there were some things that I didn't know that Inventory Lab had done. I was like, oh, I missed these updates, that they had been innovating kind of underneath my nose in plain sight. I'm excited to share some of these. So tonight we're going to cover, well, first I need to introduce Kim. So Kim McCaffrey is amazing. She works at Inventory Lab, and she totally has such a heart for all of the customers of Inventory Lab. She's a seller herself, and so she really understands, and she really works on our behalf at Inventory Labs to make sure that that we as the sellers are being represented, because sometimes it's hard for the programmers to put themselves in our shoes, and she makes sure that all of our messages really get communicated to them.
I'm thrilled to be here. I was telling somebody earlier today, I'm doing the thing with Robin Johnson tonight. I'm kind of like a fangirl, it's like Robin.
Yay!
I just so appreciate you, just as a person, as a speaker, a public speaker, and just the way that you're able to articulate the truths of being an Amazon seller and bring the truth to people in a way that just kind of cuts through all of the other stuff. And I'm just really excited. And I was really thrilled to be at RMRC. We had our head of technology there with us, our developer, which is a great opportunity to get those folks that are not usually customer facing face to face with our customers, and to be able to see you speak, and you co-facilitated with Eddie Levine. It was such valuable information for all of us. It was great.
Well, and it's so much fun. And, at one point I tried to build a software kind of like Price Checker 2 before Price Checker 2 was a thing. And I think people underestimate how hard it is to keep software up to date, and, how hard it is to get somebody who's, programmed to understand, even just getting somebody to understand, like run Facebook ads for our community is really different. We're just really different people. So tonight we're going to talk about some ways that you can save time with Inventory Lab. Now, some are going to be basic and some are going to be advanced. We want to make sure that there's something here for everybody, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. But don't worry, there's no sales pitch. There's no Donald Draper that's going to come. We're just sharing some ways that can save time in your business, because both Inventory Lab and Best from the Nest really care about sellers. We want to see you be more profitable. And these tips are not in an order. I'm not David Letterman. I'm not that cool. So this is not like a top 10 list where we're going to have a drum roll. But we do have some things, and we have some things that we had so many great things I wanted to add into this that we're going to have one piece a little bit later, one piece that I know a lot of people are interested in. So the first thing is, the way the Inventory Lab can help you save money is the SKUs will set you free, kind of like the truth will set you free. Inventory Lab, it really helped us, because before Inventory Lab, we were using another program that would generate this like and Amazon does this kind of like gobbledygook SKU. And it worked for us for a long time. But then as we started to do more replens, we had a really hard time being like, okay, so if I want to reorder just this wholesale line, how do I isolate just these SKUs? And so one summer it was an uncomfortable, a couple months where we, every time we reordered something, what we did was we would change the SKU. And so we took all of our replens and moved them over to a new SKU system. And it took, like, the bulk of it happened in the first 3 months, but, it took us 6 months for us to really get everything
Yeah.
out, and it was a lot of work. And, the warehouse staff was grumpy because it changed all the effing SKUs. And, Rochelle was grouchy because, was having to make sure these things sold out. But it was one of the best things that we've done for our business and allowed us to scale so much faster.
Mhm.
Because when you have it's not, Inventory Lab knows that you're going to use other software. So to be able to use Inventory Lab to help build it so you can have the supplier, you can have your price encoded into your item, so you have that in every application you're using, it has been super valuable to us. And, for each seller, depending on their mix and how they source, maybe price isn't going to work for you. Maybe, something else will work for you. But having some sort of standardized SKU system really totally changed our system. And so what they actually have custom MSKUs where you can set it so that, so because it will autofill all of the pieces, right, as you put them in.
Yeah, you have actually a couple of different options. Three, actually. You can choose to have Inventory Lab assign that unique MSKU, the merchant stock keeping unit, for you. So that's going to be that, isn't going to be meaningful for you, but it will be unique. Or you can use the MSKU prefix tool, where you might build in whatever kind of a code that you want. I like to use maybe your employee's name is Kim and she sourced for you at the Walmart in Hoboken in June of 2018. Your MSKU prefix might be K for Kim, WM for Walmart, HOBO for Hoboken, 0618. So then everything you list after that is Inventory Lab's going to tack a couple of unique characters to the end of it to make sure each MSKU remains unique. So that's one, but by far what you're describing is our custom variable MSKU, where you can choose to have your MSKU made up of the ASIN, the buy cost, your supplier, and you can put in custom. So you can put in Kim for your employee, whatever you want that to be. Inventory Lab will pull those components together to build that MSKU and still manage to maintain the uniqueness of that, so you're not duplicating MSKUs as well. So you can build in all kinds of codes, great for bookkeeping. People use them for, all sorts of ways, but and that's the beauty of it. Totally custom.
Because we used to type them all in to have it, and so it's so much faster. And so I had one client that was like, but I don't feel comfortable with anybody knowing like where my suppliers are. He's like, so I'm not going to put the name of my supplier. And I was like, there's no like truth test, right? So you could just make something up. So you could say that, say Target is the number 24. Or you can say that Target is D569. So don't get so caught up in, where's the data going? So I have some examples here. So, but first, let's whoa, I went a little crazy there. All right. So if you want to use this variable where auto fills every time, then you go to edit right here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say use variable MSKU. This is right, Kim? Yeah.
Correct. And then that's on the list and prep page. Yeah.
And so you're going to drag down the ones that you want. So we use supplier, item number, and a cost code. So we don't just use the cost. So for us, when it said Tears for Fears on that last slide, we had a product that was was like hair without tears or something like that. And we just called it Tears for Fears. This way somebody, they saw our list or something, they wouldn't know what what that company was. So we would have nicknames for different companies, like affectionate names for our companies. Oh my goodness. So with the example here, so you could do Tears for Fears, and then this is the manufacturer part number. So this would be, or you could use the UPC, and then some people don't want to have their price easily read, so you could put like 149 and then have the price here. So it's where it's 0999, and then numbers on the end. In fact, if you do a lot of wholesale, a lot of them do something like this, where their price is hidden within the other SKUs.
Yeah.
But just because they're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. But for the less paranoid, we have you could put Fry, for Fry's marketplace, you could put toys 0999, and this would be the price. So you can just set this up any way that you can, right, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely. Customizable. It can be changed anytime. Whatever you want to do with that, you can do. And people are kind of protective of that information for many reasons. It's whether that be, you want to make sure that it's secure here at Inventory Lab, or if you have a sourcing team, or if you have people that are helping pack and, put shipments together, this would be a way to kind of protect that data, but also bookkeeping. It's a popular tool that is so just versatile and customizable for however somebody runs their business. Yeah.
So let's say, because if you're even doing this, then let's say, you for some reason you need to have your cost of goods for a month. You're not going to have to manually look up each one of these things. So it's really it's a valuable thing. Charlene said, that maybe you could use it. She's using the word Charleston, where each letter represents like one number, and so you could use the code. You could definitely do that as well. So the reason we want to have the SKUs is to move, be able to move back and forth. It helps you to see patterns faster. So when I look at my 90 days, so what I do is I pull my inventory health, and we have a spreadsheet that will pull all of the items that have been there over 90 days. And if I see like a lot of the same store, that means that things that I bought there are not working out. So I should probably pull back on that sourcing. And, and if I see that, on my things that have sold that have sold high volumes in the last 90 days, I see all those suppliers. I know that's where I should focus. So it helps you find trends. And restocking is so much easier because you're able to filter out. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah, lots of value in that all around. And it really, because everybody has a different type of business model, even if somebody, you can get together 100 people that are exclusively RA and they will have 100 different business models. And this kind of really opens the door to use Inventory Lab and those tools. And, even if you're not using Inventory Lab, think about using those types of custom MSKUs to build that into your business. They really are. They can save you a lot of time, more than you might think.
And we had a question that's like, how do you get these numbers here before and after the price? So we just type it in. So I don't know, is there a faster way to do, could you do like a preset number? You'd have to type in like this code before and after the price, right?
Well, I mean, so you could use the create a custom option. I mean, you could bury a buy cost into that SKU somehow. You could squeeze that in between the list price and the sales rank. That could be buried in there. Lots of different things. And you can also choose what separates those components. So you can have that be a hyphen. You can have that be
paragraph or a dash.
Yeah, lots of different ways that you can kind of build that in. If you want it to kind of be all squished together, you might want to look at that custom prefix tool compared to that other the variable one. So where you can kind of plug that in, and it's going to be that same one over and over and over again until you change it. That might be even a better option. So there's lots of things that you can kind of play around with, and because you don't have to have the buy cost or list price in there. You can have up to 5 components. You can add 4. The one that's not going to change is going to be count. You'll see that down there, and you can kind of drag them and put them in whatever order you want them to be. But count is going to be in there no matter what, because that's how Inventory Lab is going to make sure that MSKU remains unique. But you can put somebody's name in there, all sorts of things.
And, so that's why I did in this example, it says cost code, and it doesn't say, just the buy cost, is because I was going to put numbers before and after. So what I would do is I'd train my staff to be 149, look at the price, 1099, 320. Right? So it would be 3 numbers before and after. You can even make it so it doesn't have to all be the same number. Again, don't get too caught up in trying to hide the data at this. If somebody's looking for you at this granular level, they probably aren't going to have time to really compete against you anyway.
Yeah. And I would leave that out of the MSKU altogether then. It's really not serving a purpose. If it's going to kind of if it's causing you more work, we're kind of going the wrong direction, then, maybe like leave that out. Think of other ways. If you're paying somebody that's sourcing for you by commission, build their name into the MSKU. So then you can go to your MSKU profitability report and see, show me, the MSKUs that begin with, that have this person's name. And that's going to be helpful. So maybe leave the list price or the buy cost out of that and use the other components.
So the other thing that I see a lot of people who are trying to grow their business where, they're like, this is what I need to do, is they're hiring sourcers, right? So not sourcers like boom, ba-doo, ba-doo, like Mickey and Fantasia, but like people to go out and source for them.
Right. we need to find out the better word for that,
just to make the inventory. That would be much better. But so if you're going to hire, things to look at, you need to be short on time, not capital. So if you are already short on capital, hiring is just going to make things worse because you're not going to get good value from them right away. Your items are consistently selling. They're selling at a profit. You're not borrowing money to stay alive. You need to have a good cash flow because somebody's going to be paying their mortgage off of your business. So you need to make sure it's stable, just out of respect for them, right? So, but you can help train your sourcing team. Scoutify too has an ideal buy. Now, when I work with a lot of clients, we've trained people to go out and buy for us. We did primarily replens. So we would go into a store, make a list of everything that is in that store, and then we would run it through something like Price Checker 2 to basically see which items are profitable. So then we could just send them in with a list to buy. And there's this cool thing in Scoutify too, where you can share just like you can like with a picture and a text message, you can
Mhm.
share it. So if they see something that's not on the list but they think is interesting, they can text it to you or they can email it to you really quick. So, when you're first starting with a sourcer, what you might do is have them, what I did with the people that I've trained is that I would have them start on one aisle and I would work kind of around them. And then I'd come back and see what they had put in the cart and we would go over what worked and what didn't. So if you're not doing replens, like, so let's say you're doing TJ Maxx and Marshalls, then you need a really tight buying criteria. So you need to know, what is it that you're going to buy? So it's kind of your inventory rules. So what ROI, what's the net profit minimum? Some people look at that. Sales rank, the number of sellers, check to see if we already have this in stock so you don't end up with, because that's one thing is when people get a whole bunch of money, they'll hire a sourcing team, and then they all go to friends and family sale, right? And everybody ends up buying the same item, and now they're really deep in one SKU that they did, that they did really well for them when they had 20, but now they have 120, and it's sucking up some storage fees.
Yeah. Yeah. And Scoutify too has a lot of things built in to help with that. I think you have that in some of the screenshots coming up, the on hand, like what you have on hand in your inventory, your sales history with something. And like you said, the ideal buy, being able to set those rules that's really, really helpful.
And so, let me actually, hold on. I was accidentally stopped the share here. Hold on a second. Because what I was going to do is I wanted to be able to show you that as well. So sorry about that, guys. All right. So with this one right here, so with the ideal buy, you can set it to the desired ROI. And then if you click on this, then it will take you through the rank. And so you can decide how much rank. And then you can turn ideal buy on and off. And this is where you say like the maximum number of offers. So if you're looking at the top, 2% of a category, then yeah, it probably is a maximum offer of 100. But if you're looking at the top, 25% of a category, maybe you say the maximum offers I want is 5. And so it will give that thumbs up whether or, to let that person know whether it's something that they should be looking at or not, which I think is really, really helpful. And you can add things in here like your average shipping rate, the sales tax. And if you always get like a 10% discount at this store, you can put that in. Or if you know that you are buying gift cards and so you're always getting like a 15% discount, you want to put that in there so your cost of goods is actually correct. So it'll make sure that you're really getting the numbers that you really need.
Yeah, it's really important to bring all that information together at this point before before the inventory is purchased, even the things that don't look like they amount to much. So sales tax. And so when we're talking about the cost of shipping, it's how much it's going to cost to add it to an FBA shipment. If it's something small, it might only be a few cents. But this is the time that you want to bring that all together. An ideal buy allows you to set those parameters ahead of time. So when you're scanning, when you scan a product that meets that criteria, the items image has that little green flag with a thumbs up, letting you know that this is an ideal buy. This meets your criteria. So to kind of take a moment to look at that further.
And Maria asked a really great question. I'm really glad she asked. She said, my app doesn't look like this. So this is kind of like the secret menu at In-N-Out. This app it's the Scoutify 2, and it has all of these extra bells and whistles. But they were, because they know that Amazon sellers, we don't really embrace change completely all the way. They left the original Scoutify, so we weren't angrily pounding on our phones one day when we went out to go source. So that's still available. But if you go to the App Store and look for Scoutify 2, then that's where you're going to find that. And then this hamburger icon right down here, it's like a little lever thing. That's how you're going to get to the settings. So
yeah, and there's lots of settings in there. One of them is being able to sign into your Seller Central account through Scoutify 2 specifically. And when you do that, while you're sourcing, if there is a restriction on something that you've scanned, that's going to show up right there on that front page, a big red restrictions button. Please, everybody listening, please make sure you tap that though, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you're restricted from selling it. It might be that you're restricted from selling it in collectible condition, but you can sell it in new condition. But because you're signing in to Seller Central through Scoutify, you're able to get that information right there up front.
which is super valuable.
Yeah.
And then you can, so, I talked about having them share those exceptions. So if you are at a listing and you click this little share icon, it'll pop up just like if you hit like a share icon. So if you do this for like a picture and you can text it to your friend, same thing. So you're going to get that option. And there's other apps that you can integrate, based off of your phone. So, they can send you, so if they're shopping on their own the first day, rather than having them make those buys, you could say anything that's not on this pre-approved list, I want you to text me so I can take a look at it, or anything that's outside of this criteria. The other cool things are, they have this profitability and the history here. Let me just go ahead and show you that piece. Let me just get it open here.
Yeah, and that history, when people see history, sometimes they think like you're scanning history, and that is available right there with that little clock down at the bottom. But that history tab is specifically your sales history with that product. So you're able to see on the front page how many you might have on hand, but tap history, you're able to see your sales history for whatever it is that you're scanning at that point. So that could be helpful if somebody has things that are stored, storing local inventory, warehouse, whether that's your basement or your extra bedroom, and it's stacked from top to bottom, to know exactly how many you have on hand and sales history for that. Scan that barcode and you're able to see that very quickly.
So you can see the Scoutify up there, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if I go into this offer, this is something that I bought in. So first, let's look at profitability. So we're going to talk about this later, so it's in the slide. But I don't know why I'm showing you like when it's on the screen. But if you click, if you touch here, then
yes.
It switches to have the change of the percentage. You don't have to have all those sales rank charts, which is super cool.
Yeah. Some people really like to be able to see the percentage of the category as opposed to 127,000 something out of 6.1 million. Tap that, change that to a percentage. Also, you're able to change between size, tier, and weight on the right-hand side. So your screen is showing the small oversized tier. If you tap that, it should also show, there you go, 2.65 pounds. Giving you, again, like just bringing that information together, giving you an idea of what it's going to cost to add it to an FBA shipment. So those are just kind of little fun things that are found in Scoutify too.
And so it'll show you your profitability, right? And so this is the list price, this is the Amazon fees, the shipping, and then so it shows you basically in a graph so you can kind of see, and it shows you based off your discount and the sales tax exactly where you would be. So if you're having trouble with kind of breaking out the math, then this is a great place to look.
Yeah, our designer Jesse actually built it like that. I love the way that he built that, just that nice visual of that breakdown of the fees, and of course the income that you would see after that sale. Yeah.
And then you have to click on the screen. So if you go to history, you can see that back in 2014, I sold this item, which is why I can share it now because it's been 4 years. My computer is slow, sorry. So we sold 21 of these, at a different price. So you can see, okay, so we sold this before. How many, so you're able to see kind of that different, that purchase history. So you're able to see is this the one that I had before? Because I've done that before. I'm like, is this really the one that we looked at before or not?
So, and because it was 2014, that might be more in demand now than it was. So you might want to even dig a little bit further by tapping the research button. So you can kind of look at Google, Keepa, Camel, Prime Comparison, eBay, all of these things, being able to look at that to kind of just really, and of course, like Keepa's like my go-to for things like that. Maybe it was something in 2014, but maybe it's really in demand now. So you might want to, throw your body on top of all the quantities that are available.
Pushing old ladies to get the stuff.
Exactly.
So Travis had a great question about SKUs, and we're going to talk about that more. So I don't want to ruin the surprise about that one. That when she told me that, I was like, that was such a brilliant solution. So you don't have. So we talked about the percentage. You don't have to print those sales rank charts anymore, which are always out of date because it's constantly changing. And I can never get my eyes to look all the way across anyway. So really like that.
Yeah.
The reason, you need to have these, the ideal buy is so great is, you might say, well, I don't have shoppers, so I'm not going to teach anybody, so this doesn't apply to me. But, if you look at Steve Jobs, this is Steve Jobs throughout the year, you can notice some similarities in his outfit. And he said, he wore the same thing every day because he wanted to make one less decision so he'd have just that little bit more brain power. All of us who've done RA especially have, gone on the next morning, started to list things, and I'm like, in what universe did I think that this was a good buy? And it's usually because you were tired and you just wanted to go home, and so you fudged one of your lines. Having those rules really helps you stop buying on emotion and being able to save that brain power, so because you're not like agonizing over every scan. It's not emotional, it's just about business.
Yeah, you got to clear up that real estate in your brain, and you'll be surprised as you eliminate those things one by one, eliminating what's an ideal buy or setting that desired ROI and seeing that target buy cost on Scoutify, not having to do the math in your head. So you scan something and Scoutify tells you need to be able to purchase it for this amount or less. And if you don't, you're not going to hit you've already set these guidelines. You'll be surprised at how much real estate is kind of cleared up in your mind and how much more you're able to focus on the task at hand and your goals. So getting rid of those things that don't need to be there, delegating that, whether that be an app or a tool or a VA or, somebody on your team, it really, you'll be surprised.
So, the other thing, one of the other items of the 10 is to list faster, because when we looked at this item, back on here, if you hit, this add button at the bottom, you can put in your cost, you can put in notes. So you could say, hey, I'm going to put this in a bundle with something else. So your listing team is not like, what is happening here? Why are you doing that? So it's going to help you provide that. So if you hit add to a buy list, it puts it in the buy list, which puts it in that little shopping cart there with the red 2, which I know is probably making some people crazy because there's like a notification there, right? So you can put it in an active buy list, and then you can either email the list to yourself or you can save it. You can also throw it away. So if you know that, so you could, at each store, as you buy things, you could add them. And then at the end of the store, you could save that list as, Toys R Us, going out of business sale. And so this way you could just you're going to be able to import this, because you can email it to yourself, and then you're able to upload it right into Inventory Lab.
Yeah, and you're not duplicating anything. So
No.
when you have that, and even you don't have to put in your buy cost again. So when you're looking at Scoutify, you can tap buy cost to plug in your buy cost to get an even better idea of the profitability. If you just have to clear the shelves of something and you add it to the buy list, your buy cost is already going to be there. All of that's already going to be there. Add it to the buy list. It's my favorite way to be able to list. It's very efficient. And Inventory Lab does all of the heavy lifting for you.
And on those items, when you did get the next day and you're like, why is that happening? You're like, I know I saw a different listing. Then, you still want to check those listings. So sometimes it's hard to see on those images, even if you click through, especially when we're working fast. But it's going to help you. I didn't be like, okay, so this is why I bought that, because I saw this other thing. It's going to help you jog your memory. And just there's so much waste in, having to, count all of the items and then put the sticker on the item and, all those things that we would do in order to make it faster. This is so much faster. And the other thing is that if you're doing wholesale, then you could do the same thing. You can save, as you're putting your order together for your wholesale, you can put it together in a spreadsheet, and then you could just upload that spreadsheet. So whether you have a master list, like we did, of a certain store, or you have a wholesale order, or even a private label order, you can upload it straight into there. Travis wants to know why he can't delete individual items from that buy list. That might just be a bug. I don't know.
Pull up your buy list for me. You should be able to almost swipe it to the side, and a delete button should pop up for you.
Boom. All right, so you just swipe it to the side, kind of like if you're, I don't think anybody else uses that. So I use a mail thing called airmail. So you just swipe it to the side, and it does work. I just have greasy hands. So
if that doesn't work, so Travis, if for some reason that's not working on your device, make sure you reach out to us. Let us know what device you're on, what operating system you're at, and we'll figure that out for you. But you should be able to swipe and delete.
Common just said it's like Tinder.
I was going to say that, but let's see. Okay, here's my problem with that. So everybody says like swipe right. Well,
yes.
So swiping right, am I pushing right, or am I swiping from the right? I don't know. I can't remember.
I've been married too long. I don't know these things.
Yeah, and I'm left-handed, so it's all backwards in my head anyway. So I was going to say Tinder, and then I was going to I can't remember which one swipe right is. So if he can tell us which one is it, am I pushing right or am I swiping from the right? I don't know. If you could clear that up for me, I will write it down and commit it to memory.
The other thing, so you can, so to upload this, so if you don't change any of the titles in the columns, it will just magically poof up. Now, if you've gone in there and you've changed titles, then you're going to have to do one extra step. So you're going to hit select file, you process the buy list, and these are straight from the manual, so you can totally use that. And then if you've changed the titles, you're going to have to match them up. So you'll have, but if you haven't, then you'll just be these two steps, and it will upload into the Inventory Lab and into your batch.
Yeah, it's perfectly formatted to be imported. Some people like to, because you don't have to do that from Scoutify. If your business model works, if this, a template would work for you, you can do that too. But if you do change the titles of the columns, when you import it, Inventory Lab is going to be like, hey, we don't know which column corresponds with which, and it'll show you all the columns that exist in your spreadsheet and just ask you to kind of match them up. But if you don't change any of the titles, it's already done for you. You can just import that thing and keep it moving. Yeah.
And there, so when you create the batch, it gives you this option. And then there's also, like, if you go in there into the little message on the side. Oh, okay. So she doesn't know how to get to that point. I wonder if we have a slide on that.
That's going to be on your list and prep page. So you go to list and prep, and then you're going to go to open batches, and you're going to click new batch. So everything always starts with a new batch in Inventory Lab, no matter how you're listing. So that new batch window is going to pop up, and that's what you're looking at here is this window that pops up where you can either go forward and start to list manually in a private or a live batch, or what Robin has highlighted is the select file so that you can import that by list instead.
Thank you, Chris. You just posted the manual link. So I think where she's getting stuck is, so you email it to yourself, and then once you get it in at your desktop, you save it to the desktop or save it to downloads.
Yes.
It's easy to find. And then you're going to click the select file, and it will pop up like you're going to open a document in Word. You're going to select it. And then once it has that, then it will allow you to, to add and hit press, to process the buy list. So,
yeah.
So I think that might be where, Lorelei, if you need me to make a video on that, just message me and then keep on me because I'm getting ready to travel. So I will make a video for that for sure.
We also have it in our YouTube channel. I mean, you're going to have to hear my voice in like all the tutorials, so I apologize ahead of time. But we do have a video for that as well. You can search Inventory Lab. It's all one word to find our channel. Lots of videos in there, tutorials, other stuff too, though, webinars and just little things people have recorded for us in the past. Lots of fun stuff in there.
So a CSV file is basically an Excel file. So it's a spreadsheet, but it's just saved in a different way. So most of the time, that's okay. So we can walk through it if you need, no worries, because we want to make sure you guys have this, because this could save you, 4 hours a week easily. And so, this is going to allow you, and Common put the link to the video in there because he's awesome like that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, he rocks.
But as soon as it would say like .csv formatted file to me before, I immediately was like, no. Like I don't know what that means. But a .csv formatted spreadsheet is kind of like the universal format for a spreadsheet. So if you save it as an Excel, maybe somebody doesn't have Excel on their computer, but the universally read spreadsheet is a .csv format. So you could open it in your Excel, and it'll just save back to a CSV, or you could open it, if you have a Mac, you could open it in Pages or whatever, and it's still going to be a .csv, and those software programs are going to be able to read that. So that's all it is. It's a simple spreadsheet, and .csv formatted just means it's going to be easily read and imported into Inventory Lab.
So it's just a way to save a file. So it's kind of like when people say flat file. Flat file. It's just a spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So then when you'll get a thing that says you're uploading. It'll give you a couple minutes. These are the only fields that are required: ASIN, quantity, and list price.
Yep. That's all that's required. You can put in all kinds of other stuff, but that's all that has to be there. But you've already done that, so you really shouldn't even have to touch that spreadsheet because you've already done it when you saved it to your buy list. But if you want to plug that stuff in, have at it, and then import it, and even better.
Okay, so that was good. And then so you can also do wholesale orders with Inventory Lab. You could load it just the same way. Just need to save it. So when you do file, save as, save it as a CSV. So if you're going to do one thing for your business, if you're going to take a course other than mine, then you should take. I'm just kidding. If you're going to take a course, then I would recommend that. And you're planning on selling on Amazon for a while, and you plan on getting to a certain size, I would recommend that if you haven't already, take a course on Excel. it will save you so much time. It can, but Inventory Lab really keeps you away from most of the spreadsheets. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really one of the main purposes is, especially for somebody like me, I will break a spreadsheet. I will, if you tell me not to put a dollar sign in there, I'm going to put it in there every time. I'm going to put a negative sign when I shouldn't. I'm going to break something. So really, it's to eliminate a lot of that. You shouldn't even, if you don't need to, if you don't want to touch the spreadsheet, you don't have to. Inventory Lab's just going to automate most of that for you.
So the other cool thing that the Inventory Lab does is you can set up sub-MSKUs. So the Amazon isn't going to see the MSKU. So you can have different MSKUs, but Amazon will only see the primary one. So you can, what you do is when you go to the close batch, right?
For this to see the sub
Yeah.
MSKUs, it's actually the same MSKU, but when we create sub MSKUs, you want to do that when you have multiple buy costs for the same product. So people, you don't have the coupon for Friends and Family Day on one day, so you pay $9.99, but maybe you have that 10% off or whatever coupon for Friends and Family Day, and you buy additional quantities for a different price. You need to be able to account for those buy costs. So when you would then create what we call a sub MSKU, which is the same MSKU, but with a different buy cost. So that Inventory Lab will apply what's called the FIFO accounting method, first in, first out. So as you have sales on that, the first set of quantities, we're going to apply that first buy cost. And when that quantity is exhausted, we're going to then apply that next buy cost in the line. But you can get to that in your inventory and then FBA inventory or merchant fulfilled. You just click the MSKU and it'll take you to the screen. A couple different ways you would create a sub MSKU. But I don't know if you want to touch on that or not, but, maybe you have quantities already in your inventory. Yep, there you go. That you already have in your inventory that that you pay different buy costs for. Or when you're listing a product, if it is a replens, when you plug in that ASIN, Inventory Lab's going to recognize that as already existing in your inventory. And then when you plug in the purchase date and list it as you always would, and if that's a different list price, or different buy cost, Inventory Lab's going to create the sub MSKU for you. You don't have to do anything. So the screen that you're looking at is what you would want to do if you already have those quantities existing in your inventory with multiple buy costs. So you're going to kind of pull out the ones that have a different price and assign that buy cost. So this is going to eliminate a whole lot of accounting, trying to figure out things later, kind of like trying to match it up and different quantities and what sales should have what buy cost applied. This takes it completely off of everybody's plate.
And like this purchase date, if with all the IP complaints that are going around, to have the purchase date to know what receipt you're looking for, my goodness, that's going to be helpful. And you're going to be able to see like when, what days you bought what quantities. So if you use this consistently, and then so for me, sometimes the way that I speed up is I get competitive. I have to get really engaged. So Nate and I would always be like, well, my stuff is selling better. My stuff is selling better. So you could set it up as, the supplier is, I'm not saying to shop at Target. I'm just using Target as an example. But you could say, Target dash cat, for the wife, and then Target dash common for the husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you could actually then, when you're looking at, your profitability by supplier, you can see whose eyes are actually bringing in more money, and you can make that competition. If you can do that in a healthy way as a couple, then it might be a way to kind of get you more excited. But the biggest thing is to be able to split out different prices for people who are doing RA. A lot of so you can say like I got 3 at $12.50, and and I got 3 at $8, and this way Amazon won't see that, but you'll have it correct for your cost of goods. And Kim has mentioned several times on other things that they use first in, first out. So if these ones arrived first, then the Inventory Lab will, regardless of which actual item is, they're going to count this purchase price first.
Correct. And then as that's exhausted, and then the next one in the line will be applied to the sale. And multiple buy costs are really difficult, especially people that don't have a background in business. Like that was definitely me. How to account for multiple buy costs was so beyond what I could comprehend. So to be able to automate that and kind of feel at ease, things are kind of more the way they should be, is really, really nice. But, having to do it manually, again, that's just if you have things already in your inventory and you need to kind of, assign different buy costs. But if you're using it consistently, when you replenish something, if it's a different buy cost, plug that new buy cost in, the rest of the work is going to be automated for you.
And so this would be really, really helpful because, when it comes to the reason that most people have inventory is to keep track of your cost of goods. So you need it to be accurate, garbage in, garbage out. So use this MSKU thing. It's going to save you time on IP complaints. It's going to allow you to be, make sure that you're looking at you're spending the right time in the right stores, you're using the right methods, you're having the right cost of goods in there, and kind of how much you bought at each store, and what you bought on each day. So, you can actually split it up later. So you can see here that we changed the price from 10 to 8. So we'll have access to the replay, but you just hit this, you click the box and then hit split, and it allows you to split them.
Perfect.
Expiration dates. I got like 5 emails about expiration dates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is something people definitely want to know about. Either that, or like Ryan Yapple just had a whole bunch of people email or something. So let's talk about, because you can make it your settings in Inventory Lab, whether it has the expiration date, and it stores that for you or not. So do you want to talk a little bit about the reminders and such?
Sure. It used to be back in the day, people would we have a reminder field, and you can choose a date that you receive a reminder, and people would use that to remind themselves to remove inventory. No longer needed. I kind of tell people, like, just use that to send yourself a nice note, like, you're an awesome entrepreneur, because you don't need to do that anymore. While you're listing, there is an expiration field. Little eyeball is on there, so you can kind of gray it out if you aren't going to be listing things with expiration date, or turn it on. Plug in the expiration date. That data is actually going to get pushed to Amazon along with your box content information, because they really don't want the same ASIN, like multiple quantities of an ASIN in the same box, but with different expiration dates. So we're going to push that to them. So now you got that checked off the list. But we're also going to send you the reminder, like the gajillion days ahead of time when they want you to get that inventory pulled out. We're going to give you fair warning, like, hey, you're coming up on that date. You'll get it in your account as a notification. There's a little envelope at the top, so you can get it there. You can also go into your settings and opt to have it emailed to you. That's what I used to do. Like just send it to me in both places, just so I have all my bases covered. So that's taken care of. You can also go into your settings and have that expiration date printed on your FNSKU barcode label. So some people like to be able to do that. That kind of just helps them keep, remain organized. But plug in that expiration date. Inventory Lab is going to remind you. We're going to let Amazon know about it, and you don't have to have that occupy that real estate in your mind after that.
And so the other really cool thing, because getting expiration dates was always a hassle for us, because you have to like separate them out and then hope nobody moves them, and you got to double check them. So it took us a long time, because you have to like basically create like a list of what you need. So when you first turn on, you can turn on the expirations by clicking on the eyeball, and then if you want to have it print the date on the label, it will print the date on the label for you. So if you just you click on your name up at the top, where it has like your information, where your account, and then settings, and then other feature, or I'm sorry, it should be advanced features, not other features, my apologies. And then you just click this box right here, and it will print like right on the label, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of really great efficiency tools in your advanced settings. Really, there's a lot that will save a lot of time. The ones that you're seeing where you have supplier and purchase and condition and reminder checked off, that is, they will automatically populate those fields for you based on what you last put in. So if you put in AGEN tax for your tax code for everything, you don't have to scroll through that like infinitely long list to find it. It'll just automatically be there. So lots of efficiency tools, and one of them, yes, is having that expiration date printed on your FNSKU label.
That's really cool. I think it's a really good feature. So,
yeah.
So, as we were going through these things, it's not always about saving time on the individual tasks, but increasing the profitability of the time that you're investing in your business. So one of the things that I think is really valuable is, and things that, one of the reasons I've always really loved Inventory Lab is it tells me how much inventory I have at Amazon, and it has these profitability reports that are really valuable, especially for people who have trouble, maybe you've tried to dig into the Amazon reports, but it's just really hard to read for you. you, this is a great way to at least get an idea of where you're going. So, because Inventory Lab is a great way to outsource, but, where I see people, struggle in outsourcing is they will say, well, I hired somebody, but they pack, really slow, so it takes them twice as long. So, when you're looking at that, just remember how much you're worth per hour. If you're sourcing, if you can, earn $50 an hour when you're sourcing and your prepper costs $12 an hour, even if it takes you 3 times to, three times longer, then you're still arbitraging that time. And so it's still good to have them as long as you spend that time on the more profitable activity. So the next question is, how do you determine what's the most profitable activity for you? And that's where the supplier and the category reports are really, really helpful. Because I talk to a lot of people who try to move to whatever's new and shiny, and they think that that's really working for them. When they look at their numbers, they realize, it was the boring stuff that was really keeping me alive. And when I took my eye off that ball, that's when we started to really have trouble.
Yeah, you actually have 4 different profitability reports available. You have categories, supplier, ASIN, and MSKU. But really, so like when we work with people at conferences one-on-one and we sit down and we say, like, tell us about your business. Let's look at Inventory Lab. Let's really kind of optimize this for what you need. I always kind of wait, but then I say, tell me, what do you think about supplier profitability? What supplier would you say is, the one? And they're usually very confident that they know who is really doing well for their business. And they're usually very surprised, and it's, when you look at the report we were talking before, you're like, it's not exactly like a sexy report, but it is very easy to look at and understand. You can quickly look at it and see what's working and what's not. Same thing, category, probably more so than supplier. People are really confident that they're like killing it in one category over another, and it's not usually the case. So that's when you're bringing that information together. This is where you really see a shift when you're kind of making decisions from informed decisions, because you're able to see, because you plugged in your buy costs, you're seeing all the fees were already taken out, and Inventory Lab accounted for those fees in the sale, really having clarity about what's working and what's not.
And, so like if you look at, because you might say like this, profitability is an Inventory Lab trick, but when you look at maximizing your profitability by looking at categories, then you can, so before you go look, some of you already started to go look, I'm sure, but before you go look, write down what your guess is, because we're always, like you said, we're not always connected to what's really working in our business. Sometimes we're more connected to what we really are enjoying, and sometimes we have to say that as dessert, but no, it's not the bread and butter. But when you go in and look at these profit, these reports, you can see, okay, by category, which category is actually really the most profitable. So I know for reals what is really profitable. And then when you look at supplier profitability, this changed right here. I click change slides. Then you can see like, okay, so which stores am I really getting the best money on? The other thing that I really think is important for people who are doing RA and OA is how much time what's your average spend per hour on that store? So if you know that you can spend, $1,000 an hour at Big Lots and your ROI is like one of your top 5, then we want to do more of that. But if maybe even if that ROI is good, but you can spend 8 hours and you're not really getting what you need, maybe you're only spending $200 per hour, then you'd be better off spending more time at the stores where you're making a good profit, inventory is turning, and you're able to spend more per hour.
That's really good. You don't hear that very often, that we have to really start factoring in our time and valuing it more. So you could be doing really well, profitability wise at a store with a supplier, but if it took you 6.5 hours to source there for one reason or another, and 2 hours for another, that has got to be a factor. You're absolutely right, and aligns just really with what you're trying to say, that it really, we have to look at the profitability of the time that we're investing.
Yeah, for sure. So, because that there's the Pareto principle, you want to make sure you're focused on, your supplier to yield and your spend per hour. And that's really what's going to really help you move your business faster, because, you're usually limited on time and money, or both, one of the two or both. And by making sure you're more efficient with your capital, more efficient with your time, that's going to allow you to grow faster. And Carla asked, with the FBA inventory value, is that what's in stock at Amazon, or does that include items that we recalled and have no longer have for sale at Amazon?
So if you're looking at your inventory and then your FBA inventory page, you should see your sales, your list price, like the sales value. So that would be if somebody came along and purchased everything in your inventory today. But you can also go to your reports and then inventory valuation. And just doesn't get a whole lot of credit, the little inventory valuation report. But come December 31st is usually, or January 1st is pretty important. But that is your inventory's value in buy cost. So that's going to be your on hand and your inbound inventory. So I think you're going to touch on it a little bit later. And one of the big reasons you want to get your buy cost plugged in is to make sure that inventory valuation report's accurate.
Because it's a really valuable tool. So
Yeah.
one of the reasons I love it. So if the other thing is that, I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, should I get Forecastly? Should I get Restock Pro? I only really have, like 4 wholesalers that I replan, so it doesn't really feel worth the $50 a month. You have something built into Inventory Lab. So you can give them, so you set it to management right here up in the all FBA inventory, and you're going to set the lead time and then click save. And so what it will do is then it will send you a reminder, when you're starting to run out. So you can actually see, okay, so I have 10 days to restock this based off the current sales volume. So, for many of you, this is about as robust as you need to be able to keep track. And so you could say, I'm going to look at things that need to be replenished, and I'm going to go look at those things and then find out what at that store, at that supplier, what other things can I buy? And once you do that, you can say, okay, what's the most profitable thing that turns the fastest? For those of you who haven't been in my wholesale course, that's where you should spend your money. Replens, and restocking profitable items that are consistently turning should get the first of your money, only 30 to 60 days at a time, and you should work down the list based off of ROI. At least that's what I do. Not everybody does that, but that's what I do.
Inventory Lab is actually not going to pop up a notification, not at this point, but you're going to go into your FBA or your merchant fulfilled inventory, assign that lead time. So your lead time is going to be, what does it take, for you to get the product live in your inventory? So picking up the phone, calling your supplier, having it shipped to you, for you processing it and getting it there. Plug in that lead time and then go to reports and then velocity report. You're going to see just really nice graphs showing you your average sales history, your max sales history. You can include safety stock if you want in that calculation, but it's going to show you how many days you have left until you need to start that process. So not only is it good for avoiding being out of stock, but also overstock. We are, that's a big focus for everybody right now, avoiding overstock or having too much inventory in a fulfillment center. And this is a great tool for that.
So this is it's a good report. It's something I think you guys should take a look at. You can do it with safety stock, without, and so you can see here, it'll tell you when should you restock, the number of days that you have left. So this is something to look at if you feel like you need something to help you restock, but you're not quite to the point. Maybe you don't feel comfortable enough to use our spreadsheet with Excel, or maybe you don't really feel like doing Forecastly. Then you have those other options there as well.
That's an easy way to explore whether or not that service would be valuable for you. Using this, this nice tool that's already available to you and built in. Does it clear up, does it free up some real estate in your mind for you? And if it does, and you feel like something bigger like Forecastly might be something that would be beneficial, this is a great way to be able to explore that.
But unless you have a ton of wholesale clients, I think that this is more than enough, because you just go to those velocity reports, sort by replenish date, make a list of the top suppliers that need to be, restocked. For you that might be 2, for some of you that might be 30, and then you can go and say, of those suppliers, which ones are the most profitable, that are turning consistently. I'm going to call that company first. I'm going to call this company second, and then you have ability to look at that. And we had somebody asked with the safety stock or without the safety stock. So do you want to explain that?
If I could, I would. It's really, if you go into our user guide, we have the solution that's applied. So it is a calculation of your average daily sales, your max sales, how many you have on hand, how many you have inbound, and then whether or not you use safety stock, that's kind of in the mix too, divided by pi. I don't even know. They would talk about it, and I would just shake my head up and down and say, I just trust y'all know what you're doing.
So
Yeah, like,
safety stock is basically, so like if you're like, okay, so I know that I want to always have 2 weeks worth of inventory in at any point in time. So, I want to make sure that even though I still have 2 weeks left, I want to always have 2 weeks left. So I'm going to treat it like it's out of stock at 2 weeks. So that's kind of what the safety stock is.
really helpful, especially when we're talking about seasonal things or Q4. That might be a time that you want to look at turning on, and really it's just toggling on or toggling off to have that safety stock on. That's when you might find that to be beneficial, depending on your business. But yeah, but don't ask me about the calculation. I have no idea.
All right. And so we went through this. All right, so the other thing is you need to set your workflow. So one of the questions that I think comes up quite a bit with to Kim is, should you be doing private or live? Because they both have their advantages. And, I was excited to see, that, private batches and live batches have kind of changed from what they were before. So, with live, you can, there's some abilities to revise quantities. I think it's great for really large apparel sellers, people who have a lot of space to kind of build as they go. If you're newer, or if you want to follow the prompts, if you have a limited amount of space, I know a lot of sellers that love the private workflow. So it's about finding the workflow that's right for you. And I don't know if you have what other words of wisdom can you give on workflow, because I'm sure you answer this question all the time.
It is a common question, and it's kind of, it gets even more confusing when we're talking about being able to import that by list. So it used to be you could list private or list live, so live had a kind of got a bad rap, not sort of, because if you made a mistake, so if you kind of put in the wrong kind of a quantity, if you had 13 and you put in 31 or whatever, you couldn't correct that in Inventory Lab. You had to go over, you had to delete everything in Seller Central, you had to come back, you had to delete it in Inventory Lab. And if, none of us want to go into our shipping queue and delete anything in Seller Central. So there was not a whole lot of flexibility. You were going in, you were a well-oiled, machine and a lot of precision. And private it was a lot more flexible. A lot of ability to make changes as you went along. And so this is no longer really the case. There is a lot of flexibility in a live batch now. You can make those changes. We've really worked hard to be able to build that flexibility in, but we do still often recommend that private batch, especially for new people. It's a guided tour through the listing process. Everything is separated into different screens, like, okay, you're to list everything, and now we're going to give you a chance to review it and make some changes, and now you're going to decide to either create shipments or even decline them, and now we're going to move forward to box contents. So nice, guided, easy. Live batch is streamlined all on one screen, so it's all going to be right there, and the benefit to a live batch is where your products are being routed as you're listing, so you're able to sort. So you list something in a batch, the labels are printed as you're listing, it's going to ABP1, you'll put it in the ABP1 batch. So that is really, really a big time saver, all streamlined on that one screen. But as you're coming in, we do recommend just kind of try out the private batch, get that, so you kind of get that workflow to build that muscle memory. It doesn't take long, and then try out a live batch, and see if that works.
So you can kind of figure that out, and then you want to make sure that somebody asked, if, you cannot, so you can not only provide box content information to Amazon, but you can also edit the contents and resend them if you made that work, and that's in private mode, right?
Yeah, you can make changes in either.
Yeah.
So if you, even after we were talking the other day that my husband, he was already at Staples with a box.
Yes.
And Inventory Lab will give everything to Amazon and tell you if there's anything wrong. Well, he left before the little green flag came up, and I told him not to do that. And I'm walking by, and there's this flag saying hey, you listed something that required an expiration date and you didn't provide it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I call him, where are you? And so I was able to edit that information and resend new box content information with that expiration date included. And, bless his heart, he put it all right back in the box in Staples, and it
all worked out.
But thankfully, we had that opportunity to be able to make that edit, or it would have been stranded, and that would have been a mess. So very helpful.
So you can also create or decline a shipment. That so if you have the ability to look at that proposed FBA shipment page, and you can create, decline, or add a working shipment, and you're gonna have the option to edit. But you can't move items from one batch to the other before before submitting them for the shipment.
Yeah, we've actually got received that question a whole bunch of times because you can have multiple batches going on at the same time, and folks want to be able to move from one to the other. You're not able to do that at this point, but when you get to that proposed FBA shipments page, again, this is new. Back in the day where they told you to send it, you had to send it. And for me, it wasn't cost effective all the time to send all three. Like I always had that one, like that tail end, shipment going to some place that only had 1 or 2 MSKUs. It wasn't cost effective, but I had to send it anyway. In Inventory Lab, you can choose to create the shipment, decline the shipment, or if it's eligible, add it to a working shipment. So you can have a working shipment just hanging out, maybe that you decided to create that wasn't cost effective to send at the time. So I'm just going to leave it as a working shipment, keep adding to it until it is cost effective. So you have a lot of flexibility there. And so this might not save time, but this is where you're going to see that increase in profitability in your time. So you're able to make those decisions about what is going to benefit you. Don't send that stuff that only has an MSKU or 2 if it doesn't make sense for you.
And, Paul adds, do you add shipping expenses, your prep costs, the cost of products when you're adding it to the batch? Or is that something you should add separate? And that's going to depend on the way that you're setting up your books, right?
Yeah, most of the time when we're talking about cost of goods sold, we want to keep that by cost focused exclusively on that product. Some of our bundlers, they're going to kind of include some other things. You have a total cost calculator. You may have seen that when Robin was showing the advanced settings. You can enable the total cost calculator. So you can kind of like put in your by cost, a discount you might have. Other cost is also included there. So if you're somebody that it might make sense to include the poly bag there, then you might want to do that. I most often see people will record that under their other expenses. So that's really where you bring everything together. If you're paying an accountant, if you went to the Rocky Mountain Reseller Conference, whatever your business expenses are, all of that can be put there. Your shipping expenses do not have to be put there. So Inventory Lab's importing all of your inbound shipping expenses for you. You don't need to do that, but all the other stuff you want to capture. But anything Amazon related, really, Inventory Lab's bringing in. Removal orders, disposal order fees, all of that is captured for you.
Travis wanted to verify, he said, well, can I create or decline a shipment in a live feed as well?
Well, yes, you can. So with a private batch, you don't know where things are routed until you get to that point. And now you see how many they're going to go to. But you are told as soon as you list a product where your products are being routed. So if I list a product with a quantity of 15, it will pop up and say, okay, Ms. I want you to send 8 here and 7 here. I can decline the 7 and keep the 8 if I want to. I can keep both. I can decline both if I want to. And then I move on to the next item. So with a private batch, everything is completely combined and then broken down to these different fulfillment centers. So I'm deciding where I'm going to be sending as I list each item. With a live batch, and again, I kind of consider that another benefit to the private batch is all together. So you know how that's going to shake out. Are you going to end up with the 2 MSKUs going to New Jersey, and maybe you don't want to send that one?
Yeah, so and then because especially if you're new and you're sending small batches, it's just not cost effective to send one item. So it gives you some options there without getting in trouble with Amazon.
And 9 times out of 10, it was literally the most expensive region for me to ship to every time. So it was just like salt on the wound.
Yeah. Well, and one of the questions is, can we print a list of all the items in the shipment that's been created? So this way, when I'm making boxes, I'm not sure how to print the list. So you can actually do that, right? You can do that by going to in the complete shipment list. Complete shipment list can also be printed from. You go to accounting, inbound shipments, and then click on the shipment name.
Yeah, so that would be for the entire shipment after the fact. But if we're talking about boxes and what goes in which box, when you're on the box content information page, you're assigning things to boxes, you can print off a packing list for each box. If you have somebody that's packing for you, or if you have a team of people, if it's just for you and you want to slap it on the flap of a box, you can do that. You can choose to have the images included in the printout. I'm kind of frugal with my ink. So I suggested that we also give the option to not include the images. So we do have that as well. So for each box, there's like a little utility icon. So you can click that and you'll see print packing list. You can also print those packing lists off in bulk as well.
Which is super helpful because we even just used the show FNSKU, and that made a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and FNSKU and MSKU, there's a lot of different ways that you can tweak that in there to be able to view the contents by FNSKU or MSKU, whatever it is that you want. You can add things to boxes manually. You can also use your barcode scanner to assign products to boxes. So that's for an FNSKU or even a UPC barcode. You can scan that and be able to assign things to boxes. And that's really a big time saver to be able to have that barcode scanner, and not a really expensive one, not the one that you pair with your phone, just like the $20 one that I got from Amazon. So you're kind of just zapping barcodes to be able to check things in.
As you're looking, we're kind of talking about shipping and getting it sent in. One of the things that I think is really important for people to know is how much inventory they have at Amazon. If you track it over time, if you see your inventory at Amazon is growing, but also the amount of inventory that you've had there over 90 days is growing with it, that means you might be buying more, but it's going looser. You're buying the wrong things because things are not going well. So it gives you a chance to make sure that not only are you growing, but you're growing in the right direction. Because sometimes you grow like this and you're meant to grow like this. And so it allows you to identify that so you can really make those better decisions. So just looking at that, the FBA inventory and then scrolling down to the bottom and seeing that little graph on the bottom, that is really, really valuable to me. It's one of the data points that I look at and I really recommend that our clients look at. You can get this information from Seller Central, but you have to download a spreadsheet and do a couple things, and a lot of people, that's just a little too much for them.
Yeah, and with Inventory Lab too, you're going to be able to look at that P&L to not even just what's in your inventory, but what is, after everything is said and done, how things are shaking out. And that's really, I talk about it all the time, that people come to us for, barcode labels, printing and listing efficiencies. But that's really, that it makes such a huge difference.
And so, the Inventory Lab, just for your year-end inventory, that will save you a ton. So if now this is just at year-end, so this has to be on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve or right next to that. So if you do it manually, you have to download the daily inventory report, find all your receipts, manually match up the costs, and then create a formula, calculate the total. That is a little overwhelming, especially if you have a lot of inventory. So if you've been entering your cost of goods really well, so if you start now entering your cost of goods in really accurately, then on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or somewhere around that, you can screenshot the little graph bar at the top that shows you your inventory value, and then you can export your inventory and save that and print that in case you were to be audited, and that will give you your year-end periodic inventory, which your accountant is going to need. And if your accountant didn't ask you for your year-end inventory, you need to get a new accountant. Yeah. Because if you run an inventory-based business, that is one of the most important things that you're going to need to have.
I would suggest that inventory valuation report as well.
Yeah.
You just choose that date. But just like Robin said, you've got to get your buy cost plugged in. That is a daily snapshot that's taken. It is not retroactive. So if that snapshot is taken on December 31st and your buy costs aren't put in, or January 1st, it's not going to be helpful. So another reason, and you can look at it any day of the year, but that's usually what people want that for, is for that year end to be able to turn that over to their accountant with the P&L, with inventory. And ultimately accountants are like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic.
It helps them, Cindy and Anna, Cindy especially would say how much time Inventory Lab really saves her clients and saves her clients money, because they're not having to do a lot of those things. And there's been a couple other questions. I just want to get through a couple of more slides, and then I'll make sure we get your questions answered as well. So let's see. So the other thing is cost of goods. So Inventory Lab is one of the few programs out there that will help you accurately count your cost of goods. So if you take your total credit card statements and you put that in as your cost of goods, so like I spent $10,000 this month and you put that in your cost of goods, then every third quarter you're going to look like you're losing money for months and months and months. So you want to have this accurate cost of goods, because it's going to tell you, is your business healthy or not? And it's going to be something that's going to be really important if you want to have good books, if you want to get a loan, if you want to buy a house, all of these things, right? So if you are looking at your cost of goods, so you can set up, if you have discounts and sales tax, then you go back to those advanced settings, just like we did for the print. If you hit this total cost calculator, and then it'll pop up this calculator right here, and you can enter in these things, so it will give you your accurate cost of goods. So this is going to save you a ton of time. You want those accurate costs of goods because it's going to help you see if your business is going in the wrong direction. I take so many calls in April and May of people who were upset because their numbers weren't where they wanted to be. And if they had been looking at these numbers, they would have seen it earlier and they would have been able to fix it. Because if nothing else matters, the cost of goods is all about, it's garbage in, garbage out. So you need to watch that. Now, the one thing with this total cost calculator is if you're adding in like another cost, like a prep center, then you can't put the prep center in again. Otherwise, it's going to show that you're running more negative than you really are. So
Right.
just be cognizant of, not, putting that charge twice in your profit and loss. But again, cost of goods are really, really important. And you also can end up with a huge surprise tax bill, and you might not realize that you have a ton of unsold inventory that is not going to move anytime soon.
Mm.
So what it can tell you is your business moving towards kind of an Armageddon kind of doomsday thing, or is it continuing to move in the right direction? So one of the questions we had is, how do I account for products that are removed and disposed? You gave me that answer, so do you want to, because I was like, that is a great question.
It is. It is a really great question. So you can track your removals and disposed products in your removals and disposals report under the reports tab. Inventory Lab is going to account for the fees that are assessed for having things removed and disposed. That's going to be done automatically, and you can see what was removed or disposed, but you do still need to account for those. So you want to go into your other expenses. Usually our folks will create a category, removed stuff, thrown away stuff, destroyed stuff, whatever, and account for that there, because that's all going to flow through to that P&L report. Everything you're going to plug in there, we really want all of your expenses, plug them in. Your Be Cool subscription, if you're hiring and you're working with Anna Hill over at Academy Will Go, you put it all in. If Robin's course, put it in. Put it all in. Bring all of those things together, because that's what's going to give you the clarity that you need.
So you want to have these, this is going to be important. So when you're looking at your cost of goods every month, in Inventory Lab or in your profit and loss, if your sales are 100,000, your cost of goods should not be 90,000. Your cost of goods should be a percentage that's less than, that's going to be closer, depending on what your ROI is, but you want to see that that's consistent. And if you see that gap close, that means that maybe you liquidated more inventory than you thought. Maybe you had to destroy a bunch of inventory, or maybe something got entered wrong, and we really need to look at what happened. But that's really what you should be looking for. Obviously there's more if you have an accounting background, but if you're just looking at it as a basis, if you see that your cost of goods are more than your total sales, or they're a really large chunk, then that means that either something happened where you liquidated or destroyed inventory, and so you wrote a bunch of it off all at the same time, or that there's something going wrong in those numbers.
Yeah.
And then this is okay. So one of the things when I have VIP clients that come and do like the 2-day thing, one of the areas where I've had more people say like this is where they get stuck, it's moving their items from Inventory Lab to the Repricer. Now we're going to have another webinar on how to get the information over. The first thing we need to do is make sure our cost of goods are right. And because data that is really good, so we're going to give you some time to do that. I'm going to see if I can get together a webinar on cost of goods. But then once you get the information over there, we want to make sure that as you bring new items in, that you're able to easily move that into your Repricer. So that's where this min max is going to really help you. So start using that over the next week to help you get your data ready to go into the Repricer. And so you can set it based off of your current ROI. So what you can do is with the min max, you can say like, I don't want to capture it, or I want you to send it to Amazon and Inventory Lab, or I just want to, I don't want Amazon to know my min and max. I just want to know for Inventory Lab.
Yeah, so you can have that information pushed to Amazon for min and max functionality that they have there, or just plug it in and it'll be saved into your closed batches report. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on down the road, but there's a lot of cost saving strategy to be had there.
And I know, so I know this is at the end, and that's what a lot of people wanted, but this is a longer conversation, and we wouldn't have been able to talk about anything else because this would have dominated the whole thing. So as we were putting it together, we thought we would be able to cover this today, but we're going to need to give a little bit more time to make sure that, we're able to piece it out in a way that's doable and easy for everybody.
I will quickly add, go visit your advanced settings. You will, or in the settings area, you will see auto price rules that can really automate a lot of the min-max. Start playing around with it. Maybe don't have it pushed to Amazon until you kind of get a feel for it, or don't push it to Amazon at all ever. But start to kind of mess around with it. Use that ROI tool to kind of really set that, to keep those guidelines in place. Like, what is your goal when you're listing something? And let some of Inventory Lab do some of that heavy lifting and calculations for you.
You can actually you can go into the closed batch and you can add those min and max prices, and then here is that default that she was talking about, right? So
yes, you actually can't add your min and max for your existing inventory. So that's going to be, as you're listing going forward, you're going to be able to plug in the min and max price.
You told me that. I'm sorry, I forgot.
That's okay.
So this is where you're going to be able to kind of set those defaults. And so with the repricer, the summary is, you're going to export the item, you're going to add that min-max, that floor ceiling, and then you're going to upload the price list. But we want to make sure everybody has a chance to get their cost of goods in, because that's going to tell you where you want to set your min and max. So start working on that this week, and then as you're adding new products, add the min and max in there. And then as we, I'm going to be traveling next week, so the week after that, we're going to talk about cost of goods, and then we'll have something on the repricer, because we want to make sure that we're using the summertime to get ready for Q4. Yeah. So we're gonna be making sure that we have that.
And min and max price is very new. We are really eager to hear feedback, to kind of find out how is everybody using it, because everybody's business is different. Is it working for you? How can it be better? We're really, really anxious to start getting some feedback. So hopefully we'll be able to get together again, and some of your folks will be maybe willing to share their experience so far. That'd be great.
Maria asked, like, how does this impact your repricers? Right now, it's just going to be holding the inventory. It would be helping you build the spreadsheet, so you can just easily export it and upload it. So can you explain what that?
Including the buy cost as well. So something like Beepool, you would be exporting from Inventory Lab, importing over there. Being able to have that buy cost plugged in for you could be really helpful as well.
So Paul was saying, can you explain more about what the min and max is? So like if you're looking at Repricer, so let's say it's priced at $19.99, but you want it to sell faster, so you're okay with the Repricer making the price move up and down, but you don't want it to go less than $14.99, because that would be like 25% ROI, but you also don't want it to go above 30, because you want it to, if it goes above 30, it's just never going to sell. So it's going to be your highest, your buy and sell, like this is going to be like the lowest I want to go, this is going to be the highest I want to go, and the repricer is going to try to get you as much as it can, but it's going to follow people down depending on where they are in the buy box, in order to make sure that you are competitive there.
Yeah, you've done some really great webinars. About 6 months ago, you did one with Michael Chen. That was really, really informative. Yeah.
So we'll put a link to that, when we repost this as well.
Oh, cool. Yay.
Okay. And then we had questions about small and light, and Inventory Lab will identify small and lights and route them accordingly, and the fees will adjust after the items sell.
Amazon will actually recognize that. So Inventory Lab doesn't have any say whatsoever where things are routed. But if you are listing small and light, when that data is transmitted to Amazon, Amazon does recognize it as small and light and will route it to the small and light fulfillment center automatically. Excuse me.
And there's a whole library of information over at Inventory Lab. Comments already posted the link. So if you just look at, you go into their support, they have, tons of videos that walk you through all these pieces that are step by step, so I would highly recommend that if you've been looking at like trying to, is this a feature? Is this something I can do? Look at that manual, and then if you have other questions beyond that, then reach out to their customer champions. But, they're always happy to help, but I think that there's a lot of things that maybe you might not want to call for, but would really help you with your business.
If you go into the help tab in your account, you'll see getting started. We have almost it's like a simulator, a listing simulator, where if you're listing a fake thing, you're helping Jesse list something. You'll go all the way from starting the batch all the way through to putting it in boxes step by step by step. Again, kind of helping you build that muscle memory, walkthrough of the settings, taking you through all those advanced settings, and also Scout, which is the web-based research tool. So I'm kind of partial to the simulator. I kind of love that tool, but that's there as well. But the support tab, there's a little one there with a little question mark. You can get a hold of our folks for chat support as well.
So, so Carla said, "Well, will the min and max go to Be Cool?" Not, I mean, so that it won't go to Be Cool, but it's easy to export and upload. So I can show you how to do that. You know, where you download it. Basically, it's just like when you were doing the buy list thing, where you have a program, send the list, and then you upload it to a new program.
Yeah, it's the same way that folks have been doing it up until this point. So for years, people have been able to export from their closed batches, and that was helpful, but they still had to duplicate a lot of things on the other side, like buy cost and that kind of thing, and nobody wants to do that. So this export from your closed batches, that is going to include a lot more information that you can then import on the Be Cool side. You'll want to take a look at their user guide and help information. I think you have to change it from a CSV to a .txt file. I'm not positive. But so anybody's repricer, just kind of like check their information, because a lot of us exchange that step-by-step guide, because, you know, we're all kind of like working together. So you might, go over and check it inform.io, and they might have something as well to help you import from Inventory Lab and not have to just duplicate the effort. And, we don't want anything redundant. There's nothing fun about redundant.
No, we want to be as efficient as we can. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Laura wants to know, does the expiration date on the FSKU meet Amazon's requirements so we don't have to put a separate sticker?
That's a really, really good question. So they have and as Seller Central usually is, it's kind of like ambiguous. They're a bit vague. So the font has to be a certain size and that kind of thing. And the answer to your question is it depends on who you ask. So we have a lot of people that use it exclusively for the expiration date. And to our knowledge, we have not had anybody have an issue. If you're selling a lot of things with a lot of expiration dates, we do suggest that print one out. Get a nice big font and slap it on a label and put that label on there. But you can feel free to try that out on the FSKU as well. But again, check their documentation on the Amazon side. Sometimes they update things. The last time I looked at it, it was still pretty vague. The font size, we couldn't tell if they were talking about the font size that had to be on a box of like a case packed, or is that the product? Nobody was really sure. So check their documentation for sure. So we also had one. So does Inventory Lab save the expiration date for each ASIN so we don't have to open a packed box if Amazon says they didn't get it, or if like it did transfer over? So that's going to be one of those times. Yes. So that packing list that we had talked about before, that is also going to be in your inbound shipping. So if you go to your accounting, inbound shipping, you can pull that report up. A lot of that's there. Your packing list, that's going to be there as well. There's really been a struggle recently where Amazon is, I can't tell if it's just like a robo email is going out, like, we got a box that didn't have what it was supposed to have, or we didn't get a box at all. And folks were like, what are we going to do? We have found that packing list has been sufficient to be able to say, well, here's my verification. Here you go. So that's been pretty helpful.
And Maria also wanted to know, does Scoutify 2 have photo recognition for products where the UPC isn't working?
It does not. So that, like the Seller Central app.
Yeah.
So you are able to search by ASIN, UPC, ISBN, or title. So of course you can scan the ISBN or UPC. Sometimes folks will be searching by title, but no, it does not have the recognition. It's pretty snazzy stuff, though.
It is pretty snazzy. It's
snazzy.
How do you remove an item from your batch when Amazon won't accept the item?
Well, so if you are going to be importing your buy list, Inventory Lab does a whole lot of heavy lifting for you. It's one of the reasons why I like it. Inventory Lab does a validation process first. We put it through a couple of different steps. We kind of say, we'll tell you, is this a replenishment? Do you want to use the same SKU? Yes, yes, yes. But then we ask Amazon to validate the buy list as well. So within a couple of seconds, it comes back, and maybe you have something removed. Maybe it was hazmat, something along those lines. So you're able to move forward with a nice, clean, buy list without any worries. If you are listing, in a private batch or a live batch, by the time you get to the point where you're creating shipments, we're now starting to communicate that information to Amazon. If there is a restriction, it's going to pop up. You're going to have nice big old red scary box is going to say, hey, maybe you're not, eligible to sell in this category. So you're able to delete something right from the shipment. Same thing with box contents. It might come back and say, usually that's going to be more of like you've missed an expiration date or something like that. You can add that and then resend that information again to replace the other information. but you're able to take those things out pretty easily.
And let's see, is there a way to have shoppers shopping at the same time and making two different buy lists, as long as they're on the same, or not on the same phone, right?
Yeah, you can have multiple people with Scoutify on their devices. And because you can have multiple buy lists kind of going at the same time, sometimes that can be really helpful. It can get kind of confusing sometimes if, when you have people, but yeah, you can have folks adding things to the same buy list or whatever, lots of different ways to kind of maneuver that. Yeah.
And then I'm not sure, maybe, so I'm just going to read it and you can tell me if you, it says, how do we use scanner to scan into a box?
So if you have a barcode scanner, sometimes you have them where they're like attached with a USB cord to your computer. It's really helpful if you have a wireless one. So it's just like a little gun and you point it at your barcode label that you printed off and you'll hear a beep. If it's like if it belongs in that box, nice little happy beep. Or if you scan something that doesn't belong in your box, you'll have a grumpy sounding bonk. Yeah, it's like letting you know. But you're scanning those barcode labels as you're assigning things into a box. So you open the box in Inventory Lab, and you let Inventory Lab know that you're going to start scanning barcodes, and it'll tell you listening, letting you know that the system is now listening. So walk across the room with your barcode scanner, wherever it is that your packing station is, and start scanning things in, and you'll hear those audible cues.
And then if you're using a prep center, do you create a private batch?
Well, that depends. So a lot of folks, you can have 2 sub-accounts on your Inventory Lab account. Some people use that for like maybe their accountant, and they will allow access to their reports and not restrict them from everything else, or a sourcing team or a packing team enlist and then restrict them from everything else in the account. Prep centers are very popular as sub-accounts, and a lot of prep centers are already familiar with that process of working with Inventory Lab. So you want to check with them to kind of find out what would work. If you have an idea or if they want to reach out to us, I'm always anxious to work with prep centers. I'll do a walkthrough video just for their team, so maybe they can kind of get the hang of that. But a lot of them are already familiar. Check our user guide. Look in social media if you have friends that are also using prep centers. A lot of them kind of already figured out what works for that group of people.
I think that's all of the questions. So, Carlos, do we just start scanning as we start packing the box, or do we let inventory know we will be using the scanner as we pack?
So when you start a new box, you can either click the toggle and like you're kind of putting things in manually, or when you start the new box, there's a little barcode icon and the word start is right next to it. So if you click start, you'll see it'll say listening, and then 3 dots will move, letting you know that it's actively listening, and you can just start scanning away. So when that box is full, you come back and you click new and start another new box and click the barcode. Well, now you're if you have AVP1 and you got a whole bunch of stuff and you got 4 or 5 boxes, you just start a new box and you start scanning in for that box.
And, a lot of people, sometimes it changes around Q4, but if you're like trying to figure out what kind of quantities to send in, you kind of want to play with that because, for a lot of people, if you send in over 18, it will send it all kind of to the same place. But you have to consider when we talked about like safety stock and things like that, if it sends it all to the same place, then it's going to send it someplace else after that. So it's not going to go live for a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. So, play with, as your business starts to grow, play with different quantities. Is it better to send in smaller quantities multiple times, or is it better to send it in all at once? Everybody's distribution is a little bit different, and everybody's situation is a little bit different.
Yeah, and when it comes to putting things in boxes, assigning products to boxes, you can Tetris things around as you need to. So if you don't want things to go in box 001, or if it's too full, if that's not going to fit, you can take them out of that box and assign them to a different box. It's really user friendly. You see green toggle showing you what quantities are assigned, and a gray toggle letting you know what quantities are still left to assign. It's very versatile. You can move things around. You can delete things from the shipment at that point. You can reduce quantities if you want to. There's videos for that as well. I made a whole joke about, because I was born and raised around the Baltimore area, and I did a video listing crab chips, and I was like, and I got hungry, so I just needed to reduce them from the shipment because I'd eat them. So still a lot of flexibility there. So you'll kind of see how that all comes together, but it is very user friendly. Barcode scanner, manually, whatever you need to do.
That's awesome. Well, I think that is it. And you've given us so much of your time. We talked for an hour and a half. So thank you very much. This has been fun. And Maria said that this was awesome. So if you guys have additional questions, make sure you ask them. But, both companies really just want you guys to sell more profitably. Uh, and Chris wants to know, can we call Kim She-Hulk going forward?
Yay! Yes, you
Yay.
can. She's my lady.
She's your lady.
Yeah.
You're not quite as green though.
Well, you should see me when I'm angry. But
I would rather not.
no, she's one of my favorite superheroes, and you don't see too much of her, so I love her. But thank you for noticing that. Whoever noticed that made my day.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Kim, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.